Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar 4 Nations edition. I'd like to think that having Lene on a couple weeks ago gave the Fens a little good luck, because Mikael Granlund, who I've mentioned recently as somebody I wanted to acquire a year or so ago, what a beauty of a goal.
That was a nice goal.
Other beautiful thing, Ray, our guest sweater, her sweatshirt, is dope. I have never seen that before. Like, the huge blocky letters look awesome as hell. But how are you doing,
one
man?
arm to the other? It's just absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great way to make my day better. We always love to open the door to the Storm Cellar for great people and Caniacs, and clearly our guest, even though a professional reporter who plays it down the line and gives, the information that you need to get through your day, that you have to have evenly and consistently and full of the facts that you need. She's still Caniac at heart, and I absolutely love it. Sam Prevost of the Bleacher Report, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here in the Storm Cellar. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
It's gonna be a good time. We got a lot to talk about, but you know what? So much going on in hockey. Four Nations, the restart of the NHL season for us before we get back into the second half of the league. There's lots to talk about, but first we always talk about the fans themselves, our guests. We shine the light on them first. They have always been the fuel to the fire for the Hurricanes. They are what make hockey great. And so we turn this all over to you. We want to hear your whole story, how you got into hockey. Were the Canes the first team for you, or did you migrate like so many others? We want to know the whole story, favorite players, favorite games, whatever you got. It's all up to you. The floor is yours.
Oof. Okay. Well, I do like to yap, so this is like best thing ever for me. But
You're in the right place.
Awesome.
So it's weird, my history with the Canes, but I'll start with how I got into hockey. I guess my mom and my dad met in the Rangers fan club. They both grew up diehard Rangers fans. My dad's parents met in the Rangers fan club as well. Their honeymoon was actually following the Rangers to play like the other original 6 teams.
That's genius.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a Rangers fan by birth. And I grew up in New York City, so grew up going to games. I went to my first game when I was 6 months old. Yeah, there's like a picture of me in like a Rangers onesie up against like a Rangers background. Anyway, but so I grew up into hockey, and then I was kind of like a casual fan, I guess. Like I liked all sports. The Yankees were my team for baseball. They still are, and they were much better than the Rangers when I was growing up. So my attention was more on like what Derek Jeter was doing. But then as I got older, I got more and more into hockey. And my mom, when she was in college, she interned for the minor team for the Whalers. So we were always kind of like, that was one of our other teams, because when you're a Rangers fan, you always need another team. When the Rangers ultimately like disappoint you, you need a second team to like cheer for, right? So we always kind of watched other teams, and so we always kind of kept an eye on the Canes. And then they drafted my favorite player, Jeff Skinner, and as most people know, he's my favorite player. He's kind of like my brand, that like I love him. And so that was when like I convinced my mom to buy like the NHL package on the TV so I could watch the out of market games and stuff like that. And that was around the time that social media came about, and I got on Tumblr and got on Twitter and stuff like that, and met a whole bunch of other Canes fans. And that was kind of when like my diehard Caniac-ness started, was through all that. We would like live tweet all the games and stuff like that. And then on the more like professional side of things, that was when I kind of started to realize that like I love to write, I love to yap. I think being a journalist would be the best thing for me. And I love hockey. So I was like, well, I can cover sports. I love sports in general, so I'll cover sports. And that was what led me to go to Quinnipiac for college. My dad actually told me, I'm not paying for you to go to a school that doesn't have a hockey team. So football wasn't really a thing. It was hockey. So we didn't have a football team, but we had a hockey team. And I loved going to Quinnipiac. We went to the national championship game when I was there, even though we didn't win, but we were there. And I went to college with like NHL players like Devon Taves and Connor Clifton. So it was super cool to like experience that. And I got to cover the team for our TV station. And I was in heaven. And then it came time to do my internship. And I was like, where am I going to do my internship? I was still kind of teetering between, do I want to be on camera? Do I want to be behind the scenes? Do I want to write? Do I want to this? And I've always loved social media. I've always loved the community aspect of it and things like that. That's what gave me a hockey community because no one in my school really cared. And so that was kind of the impetus to apply for the internship I did, which was running the social media for the National Women's Hockey League, which became the PHF, which is now defunct. But I spent an entire summer running all their social medias and hanging out with the players and the commissioner, and it was like the best experience of my life. And that was kind of how my foray into working in social media professionally started. And then I was looking for a job after college, and we had toured the Bleacher Report offices before, and I loved it. And I went to a women in sports conference for this thing called the Association for Women in Sports Media. I went to their conference. I met a woman there who used to work for the NHL, but was working at Bleacher Report at that time. And I was just asking her for advice. We had a lot in common. And later that summer, she ended up telling me that her team at Bleacher Report needed a production assistant. And so I applied, I got the job, and then I figured that would be my little stepping stone, my foot in the door. And then I'd switch back to hockey because at the time, Bleacher Report didn't really cover hockey. It was if something mind blowing happened in hockey, they would cover it. But we were a league partner with the NBA. The MLB and the NFL are way more popular, so we covered all those instead. And then lo and behold, Turner got the rights to the NHL in the deal that also brought it back to ESPN. And they were making a sub brand for hockey. And my manager was like, you need to be a part of this. Like, apply and I'll put in a good word for you. And I applied. I ended up getting the job, and we started with 0 followers and grew it into what it is now. Well, there's been people in and out of the team, but there's been 3 of us consistently that have been there. And that's kind of the short of how I ended up here.
That's awesome. And you were covering the PHF probably then, like, during like prime Jillian Dempsey years. Like,
so it was
Brianna Decker, Hillary Knight might have been a little early, maybe?
It was the summer of 2017. So I hung out with Anya Battaglino, Anya Packer now, I guess most notably, was a player that I hung out with a lot.
She's an amazing woman.
She's an amazing person, and she has more energy in her pinky toe than I have in my entire body. She is just the most outgoing, nice, energetic person ever. Like, one of the events I went to with her, she had just gotten off a red eye from California, and she was buzzing. And I was like dying. I had like 3 cups of coffee. I had driven with the commissioner to Connecticut from New York, and like, I was ready to fall over from being tired. And this woman who had just been on a red eye from San Francisco was like, let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm like, okay, Anya, it's okay.
That's fantastic.
Madison was actually one of my favorite players early on when I started watching PHF hockey, because mostly the pink hair makes her stand out, right? Like, you can't miss her. And it's a silly thing, but I'm like, oh, like, who's the person with the pink hair? Like, I'm intrigued. And then I started following, them and Anya, and it's like they're an amazing couple, and like they're super great. And then so it was 2017 would have been, I think Hillary Knight, I think, was the captain then. And then after that was Jillian Dempsey, who was back in Boston with the Fleet as of last week for a little bit. So
yeah, I think Hillary had just left the league at that point, but
so maybe it was the year before.
Yeah, it was a really, really fun summer. I did the league, Boston, and Connecticut socials. So in total 9 platforms. And then I also did the website. So I did like uploaded press releases to the website and wrote articles and stuff like that.
So more than 3 cups of coffee, it sounds like. My goodness, that's a lot.
No kidding. Hey, and so what what I'm curious about is, and I don't know if you get how many stories you could share or whatever, but the unique experience that journalists have, broadcasters like myself have had, is that you can get the behind the curtain, behind the scenes feel, and you can actually get to, you know the players a little bit and stuff. You have any great stories that you're able to share? One that would stand out for you, maybe something that affected your career or your outlook, or just that was super dope. I mean, I don't know that I'm the only journalist he's ever done that to, but Dave Tiger Williams threatened to punch me in the nose in the middle of an interview. And it was simply because I asked him if I could call him Tiger like everyone else.
I love
He said,
that.
I don't know. Can I punch you in the nose? No, that'll be fine. Moving along. It was whatever. It's
If
a
you would
funny
have said
story.
yes, I wonder how that conversation finishes. If you're
Well,
like,
it
well,
would have
thanks.
been
Oh, yeah,
interesting
that's cool,
to
Tiger.
listen to and watch. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think one of the things that I think impacted like my like I know that I'm in the right business, I guess, was when I was at the PHF, and I think I had mentioned the event that we had been to. We went to Connecticut. We drove up from the city. I told so the commissioner of the PHF slash NWHL, Danny Ryland. She was very hands on, and at the time, so I didn't get my driver's license till I was 22. And so I was not 22 at that time. I didn't have my driver's license. I didn't have a car because I grew up in New York City. I don't need that stuff.
Right.
And so when Danny wanted me to go up to this 5K in Connecticut to cover because two of the Connecticut players were going to be there, I said, hey, like I would love to, but I don't have a car and I don't have my driver's license and I don't really know how I'm going to get to this like remote place in Connecticut, even if I took the train. So she was like, oh, don't worry. Just meet me in Brooklyn in the morning and I'll drive you. And so I'm like, wait, you're the commissioner of this league. Like, you're like, I'm your intern. She's like, don't worry about it. My mom drove me to meet her in Brooklyn and I got in her car and we drove up. She was like, do you want Dunkin' Donuts? Do you need anything? We just talked the whole drive up to Connecticut. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And like, she was so like grateful that I was there to help her like build the league and grow the sport for women and things like that. And for me, like, I love hockey, but I think like it really showed me like if you really show your passion and you really believe in it and you work with people who believe that same thing, that like you can really do positive things, even if you're just like posting on social media. Cause I think you get imposter syndrome, right? You're like, my job is insignificant compared to like what certain people are doing out there. Like some of my closest friends are teachers, and I'm like, you're educating the future of the world and I'm sitting here making memes for a living, and like you definitely get a feeling of like, is what I'm doing like significant at all? And
Yeah.
I don't know, for her to show such kindness to me and generosity to me and like really show that she cared about what I was doing and cared about what she was doing, for me I was like, okay, like maybe this isn't just making memes and goofing off and doing something that I love and like conning people into paying me for it. You know what I mean? So that was
Yeah.
definitely like a big like career like mindset shift for me, I think.
So awesome. That's a
Yeah,
great
she was
story.
awesome. And then I guess like with a player, the coolest thing that happened was Cam Talbot is like one of the nicest people on earth. If you ever get a chance to meet him, he's the coolest dude ever. But this is more of a fan thing, but I was at a charity event and um I was talking, I was looking for him and I said to someone next to me, I was like, yeah, like I'm trying to meet Cam Talbot. I miss him in New York. He's such a sweet guy and everything. And the guy next I was talking to goes, well, that's really good to hear because I'm his best friend and his wife is next to me. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, okay. And so then I was talking to his wife, and his wife was like, we love New York. We miss New York so much and everything. Like, come, like, I'll find Cam for you. So we found Cam and like we're talking and his wife Kelly was like, let take a picture, I'll take your picture. And like it was like the sweetest moment. It was one of my first like moments like really talking to a hockey player and like their extended family, I guess. And it was just that it was the coolest experience. They were the nicest people ever. And then I met Cam one more time after that, and we spent a long time. They had lived in Minnesota after that, and I've been there a lot. So we were talking about Minneapolis and all that kind of stuff. But he's the nicest guy ever. Super cool.
It's funny, you know what? The partners, the wives are always like that. When I met Ron Francis, it was his wife and friends of his that spoke to my wife, and they all made the arrangement and surprised me with it. And like I said, I blacked out during the discussion when you meet your hero and stuff. My wife assured me that I didn't make a fool of myself. And it was the greatest experience of my life. But they were like, yeah, we need to get pictures and we need to do this. It's that whole experience. There's that appreciation. So I absolutely love it. Now you hinted at, well, you didn't hint, you flat out told us that Jeff Skinner got you to become a Hurricane. I'm sure. So is he your all-time? Am I making just an assumption there?
No,
He's your
no,
all-time
he's number
favorite?
one. Yeah, he's
He's
like
number one?
one, and then like Brady Shea is like 1A, but like Jeff Skinner's like
Just
my ultimate favorite player. Yeah.
there you go. And that's great. And Brad, can I spring the old quick quiz for you?
Yeah,
The
I'm
what
100%.
if.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. We usually sometimes we ask about our fans especially when they have favorite players. Okay.
Hmm.
The question that I have for you, and as it, speaks to the Hurricanes, would you be willing to trade your favorite player on the team if it guaranteed that you won the cup? First of all, would you trade him if it meant the Stanley Cup?
I don't know. That's really hard.
It is a hard question.
Okay, if you asked me that when Jeff Skinner was a Kane
Yeah.
and he was like really good, I would have said no. If you ask me now, the way he plays now, I would say yes.
That's pretty typical too. When we say, would you trade your favorite player for a cup? Most people are like, no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
makes
like now,
sense.
the way he plays now, I'd rather have a cup than like him as like a depth guy on my team.
Mm.
And like he hasn't been on my team. Like when he got traded to Buffalo, I was excited because I lived in New York.
Nice.
But now he's out in Edmonton, so like
Eh,
There's
Edmonton.
an underappreciation for his play. I've been, of course, he's just north of us here, a couple of hours, so get a better look at it. Um, he's playing well.
he is
You know what
playing
I
well,
mean?
and
Like
I'm very happy about it, actually.
he's playing great, but he doesn't. There's not a lot of spotlight for you in Edmonton
No,
outside of McDavid and Draisaitl.
no, and I think
There's
I
really
mean
not a lot of
I've been
spotlight.
watching him play since his rookie season, and I think like unfortunately with like his not playing defense that much, it like his mistakes sometimes, or like the fact that his minus is so high, that'll sometimes outweigh like the positives that he brings. But I still think that it's a mistake that Buffalo bought him out. Because I think like they miss what he brings to the team. Not only the fact that he was like the second old after Kyle Okposo left, he was the oldest player on the team. Now they have other vet guys there, but like not ones that have been there for years like he was. And just like the scoring, I think like they score. I mean, they have Tage Thompson, but like Alex Tuck isn't scoring as much and all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was a mistake to get like one summer of money that they didn't even use.
Yeah. The other question that we ask that ties into this is if I could guarantee that the Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup this season, but you have to immediately afterwards go back into the dark days or dark years for 5 years. No cup, no playoff appearances. Would you do it?
Yes.
See, that's
That's
usually
also
how
pretty the standard answer. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
that's one of the standard answers. Some
It's,
people say no, but it's very rare. It's the emotional tie to the player that
Yeah.
is stronger than the
I think also having experienced the dark days,
yeah.
like I still had fun. Like I loved the guys. Like during those dark days, like all those random guys that we had, I mean, like I loved them. Like I didn't care that we were bad because they were like my weird group of guys that like were funny. Like I loved them. I'm trying to think of like when we had like Justin Peters as backup goalie, like Anton Khudobin. I throw out all these names sometimes on Twitter, and people are like, "What do you mean?" Like Andre Nestrasil, like that video of Andre Nestrasil and Anton Khudobin trying Girl Scout cookies, like lives rent free in my head. Those days were everything to me. So I don't mind going back to the dark days if it's the same guys.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think some of it too is, I mean, the Hurricanes fans, for those who are around, we got a cup really quickly after the team moved. I mean,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, the team moves and less than 10 years later, you're hosting the Stanley Cup. And it's been a while since then, but it hasn't been that long. But like we were just talking about Buffalo, like teams like Buffalo, teams like Vancouver, who have gone 50 plus years without a cup. You ask anybody from that fan base, would you take a cup in exchange for 5, maybe even 10 years and miss the playoffs? I bet the answer would be close to 100% yes. They would be
Oh, yeah.
100% absolutely. I need to see them win a cup, and then we can go back to stinking. That's fine. But, for fan bases who haven't been fortunate to win a cup, I mean, but I'm
Leafs
with you, Ray. It's
fans
the
would do
connection to your
that
player.
too.
Like,
Oh yeah,
and
Leafs
some of
fans
it
feel
too
that too
is
for sure.
you don't want your guy, like the person, like, I'm a Svechnikov fan, right? I would feel so terrible for him to get traded and them to win a cup the same year. Like it's not even that he
Yeah.
doesn't get to win the cup; it's that you were there and then you weren't. Like it's like a double hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it was funny because the opposite happened for a bit with the Rangers when like the Rangers were really good, but they were like leaving that window. So like the 2012 to 2016 time, they traded like it was like 2 or 3 summers in a row they got rid of somebody and that guy went on to win the cup. It was like Brad Richards, Carl Hagelin, and then like one other guy like left and like it was heartbreaking. And then on top of that, they went and won the cup with their other team. And I was like, of course, of course, of
I want that
course.
for Taylor Hall.
Huh?
I said I want that for Taylor Hall
Yeah, I would love that for Taylor Hall. That'd be
That would
great.
and
be
Miko. Miko looked good
outstanding.
last night.
Oh, Miko. I'm
So
so
much
happy
better
that
than
he's
game 1.
here.
The Moose from the fish on the power play. That was
Yeah.
outstanding.
I was so
I
happy
love
for
that.
Finland, period, during that
Yeah.
game because like I think people wrote them off in the tournament, including myself a little bit. And they were like, nope, we're gonna rise to at least Sweden for the rivalry, at least give like one game that'll like make us be taken seriously in the tournament or more seriously, I guess.
Yeah, when
It
you're
was
losing
funny.
half your decor, I mean that's brutal, especially in a tournament that's where the offensive talent is this good. I mean, that's who
Yeah,
I
and
want
I
to win the
feel and
tournament.
like
And I was like,
they couldn't use international players, so they only had 11 to choose from. At like, there's only 11 Finnish defensemen in the
in the
NHL
league.
period, so they only had 11 to choose from, and then 3 get hurt. So there's only one Finnish defenseman that has not been on the roster at any point.
He's got a couple
And you,
games left. I mean, he might get a shot.
yeah,
I hope.
true
I mean, I
enough.
hope not. I mean,
True.
somebody's injured or
Hopefully they
sick,
have
but
him on standby.
yeah,
And it
hopefully
wasn't
they.
and it wasn't their bottom level, the bottom level
No,
D. Heiskanen, that they don't get
Heiskanen
much
and Ristolainen.
they don't
Yeah, I
get much
mean,
better than them and they lose them both. Like it was like unbelievable.
hurtful.
Miko was talking with a reporter about the celebration in Helsinki because people would be going nuts,
Yeah,
nuts in the streets for that one. Let's talk about Four Nations,
let's.
Yeah.
okay? Because first of all, let's just say this. What was the NHL waiting for? Why did this not happen long ago?
We should never have another All Star game, as far as I'm
That's
concerned.
what everyone was saying yesterday. Never do an All-Star game ever again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it now. It's going to be harder to include more of the countries in a short amount of time. You can't take a huge break out of the league and all of the rest of it. But if you want to talk about the brand of hockey, for an old guy like myself who watched the All-Star games when it was the Campbell Conference and in the Wales, and I'm telling you, there was hitting, There was desperation to win that game. Those games in the 80s and further back, the All-Star game meant everything. And they fought so hard in that one game. And then suddenly, well, no, it was certainly not suddenly, but somewhere along the way, because everyone wanted to remain healthy for the push the rest of the way, it stopped being about the game itself and it started being about entertaining just for the sake of entertaining and really not hitting that hard and really like no one actually played like it's a big game of shinny. And that's what the All-Star game had become. It became a game of shinny and it's like
And it's funny because I remember like when I was a kid, like I'm 28, I'm not that old, but I remember like when like early on when I was a kid, like the breakaway competition was my favorite thing ever. Guys went bananas for that. Like Ovi always did the best stuff. Patrick Kane did some insane stuff. And even that like tapered off and guys stopped caring about that. And I was like, what even happened to like okay, the game might not be as fun, but the skills night was everything. Like even that turned into like a snooze fest.
yeah and go ahead,
My
Matt.
clearest memory of the All-Star game was Al Iafrate in the hardest slap shot competition. The year he hit like 108 or whatever it was, 105 with a
With
wooden
a wood
stick.
stick.
That's the one thing I remember seeing that shot and just being like, that looked really hard. And then the numbers popped up and it was just like, oh wow, like yeah, don't get in front of that. Pads, no pads. Like I don't want to be anywhere near that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Iafrate with the composite?
No.
I
In his
I
prime,
would
I
in his
don't I don't
prime.
I would be more worried that the stick couldn't handle the force. You know what I mean?
The
Like,
G-force.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if they make a stick that can handle how hard he shot because he got wooden sticks to flex like composite sticks flex today. I don't even know what a composite stick would do under that kind. I mean, they'd probably have to make a special stick just to like reinforce core or something. I mean,
There was a great bit that I saw one broadcaster do part of the Sportsnet group talking with Victor Hedman and Darlene sitting on the couch and stuff, and they were talking about, you know, Swede hockey and especially the D men and who meant what to them. And they were dropping names, and it was a great interview. And then they said, "Okay, let's get out onto the ice." And the host gave them both his wood stick, a Sherwood, and then said, okay, try a couple of, saucer passes with this. Now try a couple of one-timers and stuff. And they're holding the wood stick, and both players were like, what is this foreign entity that you gave me to hit the puck with? Like, this is, and they were great and accurate, like accurate one-timers because it's Hedman and Darlene.
still it's the hockey
More
stick,
than
right?
like
Yeah.
they're still highest level players, but they were just like, what is this thing that you give me? It's heavy and it doesn't bend, and like it was just amazing. And it's funny too. I don't remember as many broken sticks way
No.
back in the
No.
day with the wood ones as you do see. I mean, how many do you break? What, 8 sticks a game?
And now the guys just break them when they're mad.
Yeah.
Every time they do that, I'm like, that's like a couple $100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, back in the day, they used the wood sticks to break over someone's head. We don't
Right.
mention that
Yeah.
or whatever, but that's how they broke the sticks by swinging it at someone, not just trying to take a shot. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, don't do that, kids.
no, no.
That's a penalty if you didn't know, kids.
Yeah.
Heavy penalty and suspension.
Where do we want to start game one? Do we want to start with yesterday's games or do we want to back up to day one?
We can back up to day one.
Okay.
That might be best.
All right.
So when we look at this one, the excitement was there. Everyone was on edge. They're in Montreal, and the first
And
game,
Mario came out and everybody lost their mind.
man, oh man, that was huge. And I'll say this, and the Swedes all admitted this. It the reaction just to Mario himself kind of put them on their back foot right off the side. It was like unbelievable how loud it was or whatever. And that first 10 minutes was so hard to get through. And what every team and player from every other team had saw in Canada, you have to survive it's not play the first 10 minutes, it's survive the first 10 minutes.
And they did the worst thing ever, which was take a penalty.
Yeah, that power play goal, it's the reason why, Brad and I had said, can you imagine having McKinnon and Crosby and McDavid on the power play, and how it gives you the shivers just thinking about it.
I
And
literally
being
had
the
chills when I
goaltender.
watched Crosby's when I watched that assist. I was working the game, so I had to clip it. But as I'm clipping it, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
getting up there in years, and he's
What
still
a great start.
top 3 player in the world. I mean, he's still just that good. I mean, if you just, put it in some context, I mean, he's just on. I mean, he
Playing
had
at the
3
level
or 4
he
points
is
that
at
game.
37 is crazy.
Yeah. It's when McDavid comes around and Draisaitl and all, like Austin Matthews, all of these great players now, you don't forget, but you kind of say, I've had a lot of people say Sidney Crosby, well, he's no Connor McDavid. And you think about that and you go, guys, look at the kid, his career. Look
Yeah,
at who he is as a player. Look at where he is now. I, it's mind-boggling.
because
It's
he is.
mind-boggling.
Go ahead.
I think it's also too early in McDavid's career, or to say he's better than or worse than or whatever. He has so much time, especially if he plays as long as Crosby plays. He has 10 more years left
Yeah.
if he keeps play if the career trajectories are the same. So I mean, it's going to be hard to pass Crosby when he has two gold medals, 3 Stanley Cups. He's in the triple gold club. He has a world championship gold as well. So it's going to be hard to beat that.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know. I think it's hard. I mean, in NHL season, I guess McDavid hasn't beat with all the Ted Lindsays and the Art Rosses and all that. But I mean, overall, success at the biggest level, Crosby definitely hasn't beat.
Yeah. If you
Eric
say who's
Stahl's
the
in
best
that.
offensive player, maybe I think you have a case, right? Like he's the fastest.
yeah.
He's the fastest player. McDavid is. He does things with the puck through defenses that you just go, how does he do that? But in terms of best hockey player, it's kind of the old Gordie Howe, Wayne Gretzky argument.
Yeah.
Who's the best hockey
yeah.
player of all time? And I think there's an argument to be said for Howe, and there's an argument to be said for Gretzky. Who's the best offensive player? No question. It's Gretz, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're looking at best overall player right now, if I had to choose between them, I'm probably picking Crosby because he's got the age, he's got the experience, he knows. I read a thing this morning where I forgot what it was, but he was 12-0 for Team Canada in the last
26-0. They had won 26
26.
I knew it was some
straight
crazy
games
number,
with
right?
him.
Until last night. I mean, but what about Seth Jarvis getting his first point
He looks so good.
off the board over to point? Point finds Marchand and goes in. The crowd goes crazy. I went crazy. That was a beautiful heads up, hardworking play. Typical Jarvis.
I think he's played amazing the whole tournament. He's shown why I think people I'm sure, I mean, we were all of course he should be on the roster because we watch him every day. But I think when he got put on the roster in the first place, especially over some, I mean, it's Canada. There's tons of big name players that could have taken his place. And even the fact that Travis Konechny and Sam Bennett have been scratched each once and Seth has been in, I think casuals or people who don't know Seth at all, might turn their head at that and be wait, this kid? But I think he's definitely proving why he should be there and why it was a mistake to cut him from the 2021 World Juniors team. But he's playing I noticed him so much I didn't really notice Marchand against Canada. I mean, against the US last night, but I noticed Seth against against the US last night.
Yeah.
I wish John Cooper would have recognized
Yeah.
that. I mean, like that's one of the things that really infuriated me for Team Canada again in the Swede game was you want to win all these games. First of all, there's 3 points. The Four Nations Cup, 3 points for the regulation win, two in overtime shootout for a win, one for a loss. It's the way that the points should be done throughout the league. Do
Yes.
it different that way from now on. It, you know, the records of how many points a team gets in a year, sure, those get blown up. Who cares? It makes the games more important. The regular season games become more
Yeah. Those
important.
records, like
That's the
you had the
way it
Doug
should
Puck
go.
era, there's a lot of things that make
Yeah.
those records fluent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I always come back to every year, somebody, normally it's like the Athletic, is like, oh, we broke down the numbers and almost nothing changes if you go to a 3-2-1 point system. And my
Yeah.
response to that is, well, then just do it. If it
I
doesn't
think
really
also
change
like
anything, do it because it's more clear.
I think if you look at a team like the Islanders, for example, they make the playoffs all the time because they go to overtime like every game. They
Like
just
20 games a
grind it
year.
out and it's like a 1-1 game or a 0-0 game and it goes to overtime. And even if they don't win, they still get that 1 point. And because the other team, when they win, they only get it turns into a whole thing where like they squeeze in because they went to overtime so many times. And it's like, well, if the regulation wins meant more, then maybe they wouldn't make the playoffs. And like, I hate to say the word, like, I hate to be so New York, but like Fugazi, they Fugazi everybody into like being like thinking that they're good when they're not.
And
Right.
see, and
100%.
I'm a glass half full there guy who says they get that extra point because they're tenacious enough to stay in a game and they never give up, right? And because they don't give up, they get that extra point. They deserve something. But you're right, Sam, you hit the nail on the head. Maybe they don't make it, even though they're tenacious enough to make it to the overtime, and they're a hard out for other teams to win outright and leave them with no points.
Tenacious doesn't mean good, though. It just
Yeah, it
means
doesn't mean they're a
tenacious.
playoff team. That's
Yeah,
my
Yeah.
that's my
yeah,
gripe with
I
it
get
at
it.
least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
A game should be worth 3 points, either 3
it
and 0
absolutely
or
should.
2 and 1.
That's why
Because
don't they just
otherwise, you have games that end in regulation that are worth 2 points, and you have games that end in overtime that are worth 3 points.
Yeah.
Makes no
yeah.
sense.
I think also like in our current system, there's no reward for being good, really. Like you could be a really good team and get a harder playoff matchup than someone that isn't as good. So
Yeah.
like, where's the reward for? I think there's more of a reward for being good if you. I mean, I want to change the playoff format entirely, which is a totally different conversation. But at least if you make the games worth 3 points, then there's a little more reward for being good.
Right. It may
Yeah.
not
See,
change things drastically, but it does, I think, clarify who are the teams who know how to win in regulation and who are like the bubble teams who get to overtime and hope for the best.
see, this is we've solved all of the NHL's problems, all
You,
thanks to Sam, who's has the ability to talk with commissioners and has the inside track and
Yeah, I'll
stuff.
call Gary right
This
now.
is this is though we got off the rails
you
quickly
know who
doing
didn't make it
that.
to overtime, Ray? Finland, USA.
Finland, yeah, Finland,
That
USA
was
did
Finland came
not
out
go
and
to
scored
overtime.
first, and I was so excited. I'm like,
I was too.
got one on the board. Just go 50-50, right? Just trade goals the rest of the game, and you win by one at some point. And then the
The
right
third
now,
period happened.
And then the Kachuk brothers got to put on the same line and took over the entire
yeah,
game.
I think most of the world thinks the U.S. is probably the best team in the tournament, then the Canadians. A lot of people had Sweden and Finland, and right now it's USA, Canada, Finland, and Sweden. But
Yeah.
I mean, the U.S. team is so dominant. Like the fact that the Finns were in it at all makes me proud. Like they did a
Oh
great
yeah.
job. You can't go against high-powered offenses with half of your decor missing,
Yeah.
regardless, especially in
Yeah.
what amounts to an All-Star game.
I think for Finland, like you can tell they're playing with of a like they have eyes and ears. They know what people were saying about them. So I think they definitely have a chip on their shoulder. And I was saying to someone like, you don't want to play Sasha Barkov when he has a chip on his shoulder, because he's gonna make it. He's gonna be a problem for you then. I mean, look at the way that he played in the Stanley Cup final after they went to the final the year before and lost. Like even though the Oilers took it to Game 7, like you kind of had a feeling that like the Panthers were not like Barkov and Kachuk were not gonna let them lose that cup. So
Hmm.
like I think that's part of what's pushing Finland so hard is like they all want to prove everybody wrong, especially against Sweden, which is why they won the game.
Absolutely. And the one thing about that U.S. Finland game, as lopsided as the score was, there was one line that didn't have any minuses and played pretty darn well the whole game, and that was the reuniting of the, was it 2016? Yes, it was 2016 World Junior Championship. The line of Sebastian Aho and Hintz and Line. And Line has been really quite good. He was pretty darn good against the Swedes. He got
Hmm.
a recognition as a star yesterday, and just making things happen. I mean, yes, Granlund scores the game winner against the Swedes and instant hero, and he never pays for anything in Finland ever again in his life. But Laine was pretty great, and Sebastian Aho. I mean, the in the hardest of games, you saw his 200-foot you saw his 200-foot work. You saw him making creative plays. You saw him, and more importantly, taking care of his defensive responsibilities.
Hmm.
I think that has been, people are saying, oh, you got to score points. He hasn't really, he's only got like 1 point or whatever. Like, what? It's Sebastian Aho. Come on. I'm
The
sorry. When you're playing in an all-star lineup against the greatest players in the world, and you get spanked 6-1, and your line sheet doesn't have any negatives. You weren't on the ice for any of the goals against. You were on and prevented a few power play goals that would have been sure goals. You're doing your job and you're proving yourself. I mean, you
yeah,
Oh,
just have to look
100%.
at it different. Yeah. It
one of
was
the
a,
players
it
said
was
yesterday
something.
part of what makes Olympics and this kind of hockey difficult is you're maybe used to being the star player on your team. And then you come in here and the coach is like, I need a third line checking and I need you to do that. And he goes, you got to put aside your ego and do what's being asked of you. And that's something that I can just see Aho walking in the door and be like, Coach, what do you need? What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I want you to play defense. I want you to check. I want you to be on the penalty kill. Okay, great. Like that's, I
Yep.
mean, and I know Granlund scores the game winner, but Aho, Laine, Rantanen in the net. I
Oh,
know it's selfish because we're Canes fans, but like, please get Aho and Rantanen going together. You know what I mean? Like seeing that
yeah.
connect, and it was such like a knuckleballer from Rantanen. Like he clearly mishit it,
Oh
and it
yeah.
just is kind of doing this little wavy floppy into the net. And I was like, I don't care. A goal's a goal. Like get that man's confidence up.
They
So
don't ask how.
Yeah.
They ask
exactly.
No,
how
Ask
you're
how
many.
right.
many.
And Gustafson, boy, oh boy,
They said he
shaky.
was sick, but I don't know.
Well, you know what? There was Kelly Rudy did a thing on him, and in the warm up, he said he recognized there was something wrong, like the way he was playing. They showed some of his warm up and the way he was taking pucks and stuff like that. And he goes, you know what? You could kind of tell that he was not truly in his form, at top form. And Olmark comes in and made some 15 bell saves that got the Gumby saves he had no business making. And it was a short leash. Like it was a really short leash. Very quickly, I do want to circle back about the comment about I wish John Cooper would recognize Seth Jarvis is on his team and is playing great. I was very angry with Cooper when at the end of the third, near the end of the third period. It's tied with Sweden. You need those 3 points. You have to win. And he defaults to his Tampa Bay line
Yeah.
and puts it out and rolls it out continuously while Marchand and Jarvis languish on the bench.
I think and the same thing happened last night against the
It
USA.
did.
Like
It
he
absolutely
just kept
did.
throwing out different combinations of like McDavid, McKinnon, Marner, McDavid, Crosby, Marner, McDavid, McKinnon, point, McDavid, Crosby, point. And like there was no, and especially, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk wasn't in the game anymore, so I think that would be the perfect time to send out like a Marchand or a Jarvis or whatever. Get in Brady
Yeah.
Tkachuk's face and get him out of the game, and then all you have to deal with is Eichel and JT Miller. And I think it would be a different story, but he just kept throwing out different combinations of I'm going to send out my top guys because they're the ones that'll score the goals, as opposed to like doing what the Americans did, I guess, when they built the roster in the first place was build a team that'll, stay. I mean, 3 fights in 9 seconds, but
Yeah.
being bashing you the whole game. I mean, McAvoy had 2 huge hits on McDavid in the game last night.
Yep.
And to your
Yep.
point, Sam, it's the U.S. and they're rolling Kachuk and Miller, as you said. Those guys are hotheads. Like, who can I get to? Who's a pest? I'm looking down the
Yep.
bench and I'm going, who can I get those guys to take a bad penalty? Oh, Jarvis and Marchand, get on the ice right now. And
And Bennett,
get
too.
them to draw a penalty.
Bennett,
Your
too,
job
yeah.
is to tick them off and make them take a penalty. They will. It's a Kachuk and it's Miller. I mean,
When I saw the lineup listed for the American game, I text Brad instantly. I said, Jarvis, Bennett, Marchand, tonight's gonna be nuts.
And they barely that line. I feel like I never saw that line on the ice after those first 3 fights. It was just they were just never on the ice.
Yeah, I think Jarvis got all of 6 minutes, completely underused, completely.
And in those 6 minutes, I noticed him a lot.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
he made the most of the time on the ice, and I mean, that should be enough to say he needs more ice time. Find ways to get him out there more
Yeah.
than just an afterthought at the end of a penalty kill. At the end of like, I just
Especially
and
in the
yes,
third, you're only down a goal. It's not like the USA Finland game where like you need to juggle lines because you're getting smoked. It's 2-1 game. Like
And I
what?
think Sullivan showed the opposite for the US. I mean, like Gensel scored 2 goals, but when he scored the first goal and then Larkin obviously was hot, he kept playing those lines. Like Matthews didn't have a shot on goal or had only like a couple shots on goal, but I felt like I mean, I think he was on a line with Gensel maybe, but like he played the guys in that were hot.
yeah.
Especially after Matthew Tkachuk went down, that I saw Eichel and Brady out there a little bit less, and they played the Larkin and Gensel lines a little bit more, and they ended up scoring all the goals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That Larkin
it
shot was a
it was
beauty. I'm just going to interject that real quick. That was
no, it was
that was
great
gorgeous.
shot, beat Bennington clean. There was
Canada's goaltending program needs a revamp. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying anything that other people, haven't already said, but like watching, I've never been a huge Bennington fan. He's a better goaltender than I probably generally give him credit for because I think career he has over a 900 save percentage. Like he obviously is the Stanley Cup winner, although he got on a heater but knowing he was in goal, that was one of the things for Canada. I'm like, I'm not sure that's.
I think they
work.
would have been better served with Logan Thompson, who didn't even get a call to be on the roster.
Yeah.
yeah, don't.
A lot of guys got good late, and it was too late to pick on. Tage Thompson should be there too, just in general. Just generally speaking of guys
Yeah.
who deserve to be there. But coaches and teams went with kind of the who they know and not, who's really playing well, who's going to fit this team. Jarvis is one of the exceptions, I think, to that, where he's playing well and he fits a need. But then we don't play him in the third, like where he's going to dominate. I don't know.
The injury issue. Let's talk about that because for Canada, it was very peculiar. The rules stated Theodore's out, Makar, who was not in the game yesterday. And I will say Canada versus the US, losing Makar was huge,
Huge.
Mhm.
monstrous because of Makar.
Everything that
We could
Makar
go
is, yeah.
Yeah,
that
everything that he is.
everything that he is. And the rules were that until because Makar was on the ice, the replacement for him, Harvey, I think it was, he couldn't even be on the ice to practice what with the team while Makar was on the ice.
Yep.
He had to come off, and then you could give him a little bit of ice time. The injuries, and like especially with defensemen and to our friends in Finland, I'm crying over the smallest thing. You still have the biggest issues for injuries on D, right? But what did you think about this? The excitement of the game, the style of the play compared to the All-Star game, and the injuries. How do you weigh that out? And do you think that the GMs and owners in the league enjoy this as much as the players and the fans do? Because the players were the ones that really pushed for best on best. They had not had it for the
Yep.
longest time. They were desperate to get out there against each other and look at the rewards. The games have been amazing, have been fantastic. Some a little overheated too, to be honest. It's been a long time in an all-star situation where, you know, they've been throwing mitts at each other. I'm trying to recall. There has been a fight in the All-Star game in the NHL way, way back in the day. There was a fight, and I believe Gordie Howe was involved, which should
Not a surprise.
Not a
no one's
surprise.
surprised.
Was he
But
like 50 at the time though? Beating
Probably.
up, but beating
he
up some like
probably
20-year-old
was, yeah.
kid. I mean,
Some
that sounds
some
like
kid
how
probably was talking smack to him, and he straightened him out, and
he
that's
got a Gordy elbow and things
Yep.
there you
happen.
go.
Can't do
What
that,
do you
kids. Don't
guys
do that.
think with this style of play, the amount of emotion that the players bring to it, but the danger long term to the players? Theodore, I don't know how long he's going to be out. That means a
To
lot
me,
to
it looked like he broke
Vegas.
his wrist.
Yeah, yeah. So he's going to be out for a long time. That jeopardizes Vegas. I mean, sure they have Hannafin, and I mean they've got a good lineup, so they should be able to absorb it and so forth. But what what do you think? Like, is this something that we get a chance to see again long term, or are the threat of injuries too much for the league to absorb or risk, rather, is probably the better word.
I think, I mean, like I heard like the interviews with Bill Guerin, who's the GM of the US team, and like he played in, I mean, maybe his perspective is a little different because he played in the 96 World Cup of Hockey. So like he knows how much it means to the players and he's coming at it from like two perspectives as a GM and as a former player. But he was like just as excited as the players that all of this was happening. So to me, that always says like maybe the risk out, like the reward outweighs the risk. But I don't know if every GM is feeling that way. Like, who knows if like a Kyle Dubas feels that way? You know, they left Crosby's decision to play up to him, but I'm sure every time he's out there, Dubas is kind of like, you know, holding his breath a little bit that whatever injury he has is going to get aggravated. So I feel like every executive is going to come at it from a different point of view. But for me, if your players are happy and like are playing with passion, yeah, they might get hurt. Like we don't know what's wrong with Matthew Tkachuk right now, and I'm sure Bill Zito's going crazy. But at the same time, he's never been happier, and he said that that was the most important game he's ever played in his life. So, I feel like it's a reward outweighs the risk. I think, and like the fact that they're going to keep doing this every 2 years, I think speaks to that.
Marketing wise, I mean, let's compare it to all-star situations in the other sports. I mean, hands down. The NHL might be fourth in popularity all around throughout the scene, which makes no sense to a Canadian like me, but I digress. When you look at the All-Star situation, how do you beat that?
Oh, you don't.
Marketing for the NHL, they should be doing this 3-4 times a year, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you want to market what the NHL is and what it can be and the excitement, man, just put it straight in my veins. Like, honestly, hook me up because that was sensational.
Yeah.
And the
And
risk is worth the reward, even though I was holding my breath like everyone else, like Dubas was with Crosby. I hold my breath for Fishy and for Seth. I want great games. Just please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt.
oh
You're
yeah. I think
knocking on wood, and yeah, I mean it's just crazy, right?
yeah, with the fourth most popular thing, I think the perfect example was last night because you had that electric hockey game that was like instant classic. Like I'm probably going to be telling my kids and grandkids about it. And then you have the NBA skills was last night.
Mhm.
And you have Wemby, like, I don't even know what game he was doing. He's not even trying. He's just chucking balls as fast as he can off of these like little stands, not even trying. In like, I don't think it was a 3-point competition. It was
He
something else,
Kucherov'd
but
it.
regardless,
Kucherov.
you see him
Yeah.
have a skill that he doesn't really care about and them like dragging Mac McClung out to win the dunking competition and sending him back to the G League after. And then you have that USA Canada game. Like that's, you know, that's where where the NHL can win that battle.
Oh,
Yeah. I
totally.
think the big thing is hockey is an inherently dangerous sport. It just is. You put knife shoes on and you skate at 20 miles an hour and you hit each other with a little piece of rubber that goes 100 miles an hour. It's just inherent. Guys get hurt in practice, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're all Canes fans. We know guys get hurt in practice. So it's kind of like being a parent. Like being a GM is a little like being a parent. Like, do I want my son to get hurt? No. Am I going to let my son go ride his bike and stuff and wear a helmet and takes proper precautions? Yes. Is he going to get hurt? Maybe. But the alternative is to do nothing, right? The big thing for me is the fans have bought into this because we had some discussions privately, Ray, where, are people into this or, what's going on? Because we were into it, but it's like the players, some of them don't seem like they want to be there. Some of them seem like they really want to be there. Ticket prices for Boston starting tomorrow have basically doubled in the last 48 hours. And I think that's because of what you've seen on the ice in the last couple of games. People went, oh, this is not an all-star game. This isn't even Olympic hockey. This is more like an NHL Olympic hybrid. Like these guys are playing real hockey. And the prices for tomorrow's Finland game, you could have gotten in there for $75 last time we recorded, last Sunday. Now the minimum ticket's like 150. USA
Yep.
Sweden.
Did you see and then
is like
the
three
championship is most likely going to be USA Canada again.
Yeah.
And the ticket prices for that championship game, my friend sent it in a group chat this morning, over $1,000.
Yep, the cheapest seat I could find for a single ticket was like $780. And that's going to be, in the Garden, that's going to be up by the roof. I mean, so I think that the fans have taken notice. I think the quality of play, and injury-wise compared to normal NHL games, it's not like this has been more dangerous or anything. I think there's been some bad luck. The game yesterday was awfully heated with the 3 fights and all. You don't want to really see that. I mean, I was hoping for more Olympic style, and some of it's just on the players. And this is whether this is a Four Nations game, an Olympic game, or an NHL game, a preseason game, or last game of the year in Columbus and you're Jasper Fast, right? The players have to respect each other. Like there are guys we know who go out and are headhunting, right? They're trying to put the other guy out because they want to win. And if you're going to come into a tournament like that and that's your attitude, somebody's going to get hurt. But when the players say, hey, it's still hockey. Yes, I want to win. Like I play for Finland. I want to beat Sweden. It's a big deal. But like play within the rules. The risk of injury is not non-existent, but it's not severe, if that makes sense. I mean, if you keep the illegal hits and the charging and the after the whistle stuff out of the game, which I haven't seen a ton of, and you play with a level head, I don't think it's any more. I mean, guys still play in World Cup games, guys still do other things. This is just one more, but as a fan who can't be there in person, would you rather watch this or the All-Star game on TV? Like, it's not even a question at all. All-Star games, we've said, they're if you go in person, it's wonderful. It's a lot of fun. You take the kids, like there's a lot to do. All-Star games on TV are ridiculously boring. As bad as I didn't like what Kucherov did last year in the skill stuff, but I get it. Like he's like, I don't want to be here. He probably told them I don't want to go, and they were like, you need to go, and he's like, well, fine.
They told him
this will be the
they
last time you
probably
make
told
that
him
mistake,
we
right?
can't risk you getting suspended for a game, so you have to go.
Exactly, and he did what I would have been tempted to do. I would have done it for the kids, right? Like I'd have been, I don't want to be
Yeah.
here, but there's kids, and I want to show up for the kids. But I get the idea. Like I'd rather go take a couple weeks off versus, hey, do you want to go play for your country in a best on best tournament with 3 other teams? And I'd be like, oh yeah, actually I kind of do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think also what you mentioned about the world, like they go play in the world championships. I think what my clue was that this was gonna not be that kind of tournament, like an all-star game, I think was when Czechia won the world championships this past summer. Seeing like Pasta, Natchez, those guys be the happiest people on earth because they won Czechia the world championship, and that wasn't even like against mostly other NHL players. Like I think that was my clue that like that's what they love. They love playing for their either for the team that they like for their NHL team or for their country. Like if the next like maybe even more important is playing for their country. And like for what that did for Czechia, like I think that was also part of the reason why they were so they weren't in the Four Nations. But like I think that was my clue that I was like, yeah, no, this Four Nations thing is gonna be dope because like they were
Yeah.
they went bananas when they won the world championship.
yeah,
The celebrations in the streets, they showed them in Czechia. It became a national holiday. Like honestly, and rightfully so, right? Congrats for them because there's I don't know if there's a little brother situation there to the world of hockey. I don't know, but it shows the importance of these international
yeah.
events and
And
that the excitement is there and it's great. The world championships are okay, but they get the remainders of who is left
Yeah.
over, right?
yeah,
It's not the Olympics. It's not an event like this where take your pick. Who do
it's
you
not really
want?
best on best. It's
Yeah.
Right.
very good on very good.
Yes.
Another thing you could do with Four Nations. So let's say you're a GM, you're like, I don't want my players getting hurt. Okay, so next year you invite 4 different teams, or maybe you swap out 3 of the. You know what I mean? Like maybe
Yeah.
whoever wins comes back, and there's 3 other countries that get to come in,
Relegation.
right? Like a relegation,
be
but that way
fantastic.
your guys aren't necessarily playing every year. Maybe they're playing every 2 or 3 years, or if it's going to be biannual, every 6. You know what I mean? You could rotate. You could have Czechia. You could potentially bring in like a Russian team. You could bring in. There's so
I
many
think
places that you could rotate through and still
I'm
make it
intrigued for
fun.
the next World Cup because the rumor is that the 2028 World Cup, like all things permitting politically, that they're gonna have 8 teams. And I'm curious what those teams would be because clearly the logical next 2, other than the 4 that we already have, are Russia and Czechia. So then what are the next 2 teams? Because like Slovakia, Switzerland, they don't have enough players if you're going to only field NHL players. If you could bring in international players, that's a different story. But you have countries like Denmark and Slovakia, and Slovakia and Switzerland that might not have. So then you have like the miscellaneous Europe team. But then what's that 8th team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I- I'm going to do something I never imagined that I'd ever do in my life.
Oh Lord.
Here we go. Um, Putin, get out of the Ukraine so we can have the Russians in this.
Correct.
Please, please,
Yeah,
just
I mean,
for the love of hockey, the Russians, like every Russian player is looking at this Four Nations thing, and I guarantee they are all saying, it's not best on best.
they're
We're left
salivating.
out. They
Ovi's
want to
probably
get in.
stewing.
Like yeah. Yeah,
I mean, people
we're
have
not.
put out like a theoretical Czechia and Russian rosters, and you look at those rosters and you go, "Oh yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Make this a 16, round robin, and do this. Make this happen."
Yeah, Putin, get out of the
I
Ukraine.
mean,
Okay,
imagine
I want
like
my hockey
the
back.
Russian team alone would be berserk. Like
Oh
you could
man,
realistically have like Kucherov, Ovi, and Panarin on the same line, which would
that
be
scares
Mm.
the crap out of me.
that'd be terrifying. And then
Yeah,
that means you have Kirill Kaprizov on like your second or third line, maybe.
jeez, I can't even.
I would
And
be
then
insanely dope.
we'll talk. What about the goaltending?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Vazzy, Kochekov,
Yeah, I mean Bobrovsky. I mean, you got.
Bobrovsky,
Bob,
I mean,
Samsonov.
it's probably Vazzy, Bobrovsky, and Kochetkov. I mean,
Yeah, or
one,
Ilya
two, and three
Samsonov,
maybe.
maybe.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
geez,
so good. There's
I'm
so many options.
if people could see us right now, and we don't broadcast it, they'd see how whimsically I'm like dreaming
We're all
what that would
daydreaming
be
about
like.
having
Right? Like
Honestly,
opportunities.
what
like I'm
what could
just
have been?
looking off into the distance, right? Just oh my gosh, that would be
Well,
so
for what
good.
will
Please.
happen is this time tomorrow I'll be on the train into Boston for
Yeah.
Canada. I almost said Canada, lower breath. Canada and Finland. Those are two different countries,
Yeah.
not one. And I can't wait because I get to see three Canes in one game. I hope in warm-ups Aho and Jarvis like drop the gloves, pretend like I mean Jarvis has
I
brought it
want
up
to
a few
see that.
times. Like
Yeah, I was
I,
gonna
I
say
just want to
Jarvie
fight
said he'll
fishy.
only fight if Aho challenges him.
I want
Yeah.
that to happen in like pregame or something because I mean, but I'm so looking forward to this game because they both. So right now the U.S. has 6 points, clearly the front runners.
They
Yep.
clinched
Canada,
a spot in the championship.
yeah, Canada, Finland, Sweden all have two, but Sweden has two overtime losses, right? And Canada and
Yeah.
Finland are tied because they both have an OT win and a loss. So that game tomorrow is a much bigger game than USA Sweden, even though it's the USA, right? Cannot wait. There'll be some Caniacs up here. We'll get to do some of the fan village stuff probably after the game. So cannot and I get to see, I mean, living 600 miles away, I don't get to see these guys in person very often. I haven't seen them I've seen them once this year. So I'm super psyched. And the fact that this will be my first chance to see Rantanen, very excited about this game. And I think Finland has a shot. I mean, Canada, I think, is going to be looking for some revenge. I mean, I think they're going to be out for blood. But
Yeah, I'd hate to be the
there's
person having McDavid barrel down on them tomorrow.
yeah, Finland is just one of those.
Could be all
You're
right.
like they're a team, like they're playing for country, like they're going to regroup. I don't think this will be even if they lose. I don't think this will be like the USA game. I don't think this will be a 6-1 game. I mean, Canada
No.
has a lot of firepower, but I feel like Finland is going to find a way to keep this close if they can't win. But I'm really hoping they win and make that final because that would just be phenomenal for. I mean, Finland has fewer people than Boston. You
Five
know what I mean?
million.
And they still are fielding a team that's competitive. They're not out of place in this tournament by any stretch.
No.
So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm very psyched. This
Do they start Saros or Lankinen?
Lankinen.
I would do Lincoln. I mean, he looked pretty good yesterday. I thought. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Saros is the better goaltender, but with all he's had to go through with Nashville this year, I mean, maybe his head's just not quite
I
on. You know what I
agree.
mean? Like maybe there's just a little reservation or something. I don't know, but
I went to two games in Nashville recently, and Saros played great, but there were definitely moments where I was like, oh, I can see the kind of year he's having.
Yeah. And Lankinen has something to prove. He's the next generation, I guess, of great Finnish goaltenders, and they've had a lot throughout over the years. And he wants to prove himself, and he did in that game against I mean, first of all, I think it was brave to go with Lankinen over Saros in that big competition. It wasn't really it was we want to win. Who do you want, especially in this one? I think Finland secretly might have been saying, and the fans might have been saying, look, if we finish last, so be it. Let us beat Sweden, right?
Yep.
That's the
Yeah,
game that they
that
want to.
seemed to. I
We
mean,
want to
that was
win
kind of
that one.
Linnea's take, I
Win
think.
what?
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah.
kind of the mindset, I would think.
And when you think of that kind of importance, and you look at your roster that has proven guy like Saros and Lankinen, who's played great in Vancouver, he's played fantastic. And you say, do I go with the kid and put him in this super hot, high tempo situation with everything on the line for us? And they do. Brave, but it paid off in spades. And that's why you go back to him.
Oh yeah. I agree.
Like,
And that save, the save right before the overtime winner, I think like completely seals
yes.
the deal for him. Cause like, yeah, he didn't know where it was after he made the save, but he made that save.
Hmm.
That he was is spinning around and haphazardly him spinning around and just nicking the puck to keep it out. You had no idea where it was. And that little spin where he's trying to correct himself and figure out where the puck is and where am I, and that was out of pure panic because it's just like when you lose your car keys.
Yep.
Right. That's what you lose your car key and you're like, oh, where did it go? Where did that was the kind of panic he was feeling times about a billion. And he still made the save and then they go down and score. Fantastic. Um, I mean, Bennington, it's funny. They weighed it was, there's a mindset. Cooper said, look, this is a short tournament and Bennington's our guy. He's who we start. And he was not great against Sweden. And I was like, you know, it, Thompson's not here. How about we just go with Hill? Go with Hill. Put him in there. He's got a cup too. You know what I mean? Like he's got the pedigree. He can do it. Throw him in. He'll be ready. And a couple of the goals last night, I don't want to say they were soft, but you gotta have the saves. You gotta have them.
As a
And would
Bennington
Hill have
hater,
made
I
them?
hope they start Bennington.
I was gonna say as a noted Bennington hater, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
He's so strange because he lets in like such like those two goals were pretty soft, but then he makes like other insane saves, and it's like it's so hard to judge him because like one minute he looks like the worst goalie to ever step foot on the ice, and then the next minute he looks amazing.
He
you
made
know who he
three
reminds me
overtime
of,
saves.
or who
Yeah, he made
reminds me of
huge
him.
saves in against Sweden in overtime.
Three.
Yeah.
Three. We
He
had
let
no
in some
business
softies in
getting
the
there.
third period, and then in overtime he was like, "Oh yeah, I remembered how to play goalie now." By the way,
Isn't that crazy?
He reminds me of Kuchetkov
yes,
because love Piotr. I might take
he,
his jersey. I think I'm taking his jersey to Toronto. But
Nice.
he will let in, a guy will come streaking down the wing and there's a defenseman there and everything. It's just should be an easy peasy and it goes in. And you're like, how, dude, like, how did that go in? And then 3 minutes later, you're out of your seat cheering because he just made some incredible post to post behind, whatever it is. And you're like, how do you make the 10 bell saves and you let in a 2 bell save every game? And I feel like Bennington's the same way. It's like,
yes.
how do you stop the really hard ones and the easy ones? You're just like, I'm gonna let him score this one. I don't know. It's weird.
The sadness of it all is that we're at the situation where Bennington's even in the discussion. And that's a grand scheme look at when you look at Canadian goaltenders over time. Do any of the three options that we had now come close to the backups that the Canadians had back in the day?
Yeah.
No,
No,
like
that's, I mean,
not
if you
even
look at like
close.
the Olympic teams when they had like Price and Fleury and like to go from that.
I would have loved to
Yeah.
have
I
Flower
mean,
there.
none of the Canadian goaltenders would be on the USA roster. I don't think.
No.
None. Not a
I
single
mean,
one.
you could make an argument that they could make the roster maybe for Sweden and Finland, but not as a starter. Maybe as a third. But
I think that also like to like talk about the American goaltending. I was so nervous about Connor Hellebuck because of how he's played in playoffs in the past, and last night he completely like took away all of my fears that he would not rise to the occasion.
this will end up
See,
being good for him and the Jets in the playoffs for sure. I
If
think
I'm a Jets
he's
fan,
got that.
I'm if I'm a Jets fan, I'm partially like, what the hell? Why didn't you do this against Colorado last year? But then the other part of me is like, okay, well, you didn't do it against Colorado last year, but you might do it this year when we're better than we were last year.
Yep.
it's funny that didn't enter my mind as a fear at all. Not one little bit. It's like it felt like a to me, and I'll apologize to you because you are a professional. It felt like a fabricated concern because first of all, the U.S. lineup is just the best in the four nations. It is the best. There's no question about that. It was like they were trying to find some sort of controversy and stuff like that. Let's face it, the NHL playoffs, as great as they are, still don't meet playing for your
Oh, they
country.
don't.
And
That's true.
Connor Hellebuck is it.
A hell of a goalie.
He is
He has
to
7
me,
regulation losses this year. 7.
he's the Hart Trophy winner this year. It's been forever since we've had a goaltender as the MVP of the NHL. He is.
It still bothers me that Henrik Lundqvist never won a Hart Trophy, but I digress.
Well, yeah, and I don't blame you. The king, I mean, King Henry, holy cow.
But Henry had the hair. I mean, that offsets.
Yeah, and he has a Vezina, so I'll take it.
I have to say, there was zero concern. He was, I mean, as Canadian, he was my biggest concern because, yeah, you're playing a tough lineup, but in the end, you got to score. And who's back there? The best goaltender in the league, playing the hottest that he's ever played. How do you deal with that?
I think I'm
How?
also biased because Jake Ottinger is around my age and he held it down for the USA in World Juniors and when they won their gold with like I think that was like the Zegras team and all them. Um so for me, I was always like Otter's the guy because like I've seen him be clutch in international play before and he's not as good as Hellebuck by any means, but he's very, very good. And so for me, that was like my comfort goalie. I was like, Hellebuck makes me nervous in clutch situations, but I know Otter can hold it down. But again, Hellebuck completely took away my fears yesterday because he like was a brick wall. I mean, the McDavid goal that he let in, every goalie in the NHL would let that in.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That,
And if
that
you'd
was
asked like 2 years ago who's better, I'd be like, I probably would have went Ottinger until just really recently, right? I mean, Hellebuck's really picked up his game and has really risen up. And so I didn't realize it was only 7 losses. That's
Yeah, he has like
phenomenal.
6 shutouts and 7 regulation losses or something. Like it's disgusing.
That's like an NHL 2025 on Xbox kind of.
Yeah, like on easy mode or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even Ottinger, I mean, I looked at that. If they somehow decided that Ottinger was the guy to go against Canada, I still would have been, dang, that's going to be so difficult. Like,
Easily the best goalies in goalie threesome in the league because you have in the tournament because you have Hellebuck, Ottinger, and then Swayman is your third goalie.
yeah, I thought the way if we were looking at the lineups and ranking them, it was US, Sweden, Finland, and somewhere in the back. I mean, Canada. I mean, for their goaltending aspect, and that sounds so disrespectful. And I apologize. Very Canadian of me to apologize, but it's fact. It's just fact.
That's why they need to play Jarvis more. If the puck doesn't get to the goalie, then the goalie's not as significant.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
honestly,
why Doughty's
exactly.
there. In all honesty, because when Doughty was one of the injury replacements, I was like, really? He just broke his leg recently, and he's a little old, but He's holding it down. He's shutting it
He
down so that the
is.
puck doesn't get to Bennington, which I think is part of the plan.
He is absolutely. Brad, I know you're excited.
I am.
I would, and I'm jealous. Uh, you and I will be able. I'll get over that jealousy when the NHL returns for us on Saturday in Toronto.
Time to
But
start
we
packing my
still,
bags. I got a 6
yeah,
a.m. flight on Friday, which means
my get
I have to meet the bus to go to the airport at like 2:30 in the morning.
my bag is
Yeah.
already packed, and I've still got. I'm
I'm
so
excited.
excited for this.
I'm gonna just, as long as my iPad and stuff is charged, I'll be good. I don't know that I'm gonna sleep the night before.
I'll live vicariously through you guys because I have a Kane season ticket, but because of work, I barely get to go to games. Um, so I'll be jealous that you're seeing the Canes and you're seeing them in Toronto, which is one of my favorite places.
We'll be
It's
on,
gonna
knock
be.
on, we'll be on TV. Look for us behind the penalty box. I think we're behind. I think the visitor penalty box.
Woo!
Oh,
In the, like, in that row. So I
it's gonna
really
be
hope I
great.
get to talk smack to somebody. I don't care
That would be
who goes in the box,
that'd
because
be
I just want to leave against the penalty box and be like, thank you for Seth Jarvis like 100 times
yeah.
until they're like, dude, shut
That's
up.
Oh right, yeah, we got him with the pick from the Marlowe trade, right?
yes, we
100% thinking
did.
about taking a sign that says something like, thanks for Seth Jarvis, or
Thanks for Steph
That's why
something to
that's
that
why
effect.
Canes fans should never boo Jeff Skinner because his trade was the pick we
Oh,
got for Kochetkov.
Isn't that
true.
funny? Hey, I love doing what I don't know what that's called, but the 6 degrees of
Oh,
separation
trade
Yeah.
tree
and
kind
whatever
of.
the treat. Yeah,
The hockey gods giveth, and the
and
hockey gods
sometimes they
taketh
take it
away.
away,
And
right?
if they
But
taketh away from Toronto and giveth to the Hurricanes, I'm excited.
all the better, all the better. The who so very quickly, who's going to be in the final for the Four Nations on
I think it's going
Thursday?
to be USA Canada.
I
Brad,
think it's USA Canada, but I want it to be USA Finland.
um, I would like it to be USA Canada. I'm Canadian, proud Canadian. Um, I'm not sure how this is going to go. I think I would actually. Now, you know what? I want to see USA Canada, but I also know what that would mean. And part of the reason why the prices of tickets are going up so quickly for certain games is the USA's and their fans a chance to show their support and perhaps their displeasure with other countries.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I
that's a
think
discussion that Brad and I are going to have for another show, a
Yeah.
special. Um, I was, I'll just say this, I was appalled by what I saw yesterday before the game started. And it, to me, for me, ruined the first 9 seconds. If the anthems don't play and you just go out there and you start and there's none of that nonsense about booing and disrespect and so forth, and you just have the game start, that's the single most exciting game as sportscasters in Canada have been talking about ever, ever. Three fights in 9 seconds of the start of the game. Three fights. You think that game didn't mean something to them? Of course it did. Of course it did.
and they planned it beforehand.
Another thing
Yeah.
that you find out, and it's like the reasons why they planned it out are subject to discussion. I I wonder if the booing of the anthems from the game before and that one didn't have a whole lot to do with why they were planning to do it
Yeah, and I
at
think it's also
all.
the fact like we've talked about they've waited so long to do this. Like especially the Kachuk brothers who keep talking about it. Like we've waited 9 years to play this game. I mean, Matthew Kachuk played in a game 7 of a Stanley Cup final and said that last night was the biggest game he's ever played in. Like
Yeah,
that's how much it means to them. So I think for the two of them, at least, I feel like JT Miller kind of just hopped on the bandwagon, to be honest, in that group chat. Um, but the two of them, I think they've been like playing that game in their head for a decade now. And so for them, I think like that was like their way of like showing, I mean, they're Kachucks, it's how they show their passion. They punch things. So I think they decided like like we've been waiting this long, and I think you're right, like that subtext, the things going on in with the fans and just the world and all that kind of stuff. I think it all just turned into like this perfect storm. And so they were like, why not? Why don't we kick this off with a bang and just start chucking knucks to start the game?
Yeah, I just for guys that said I've waited 9 years to play this game. Do you think in their head 9 years ago that they thought the very first thing that they were going to do when they stepped on the ice was throw mitts at each other?
In their case,
No.
maybe.
I'll say it is the
Uh,
Kachucks and JT Miller, dude. I mean, they Tim
I don't
peeled it
know.
and basically said we want to get one in early.
I don't know if JT Miller thought that he'd be doing that. I don't know if JT Miller thought he'd even be on the team.
Right. Yeah,
I don't
I'm
think
not
he
the
thinks
biggest
that far
JT
ahead.
Miller fan though.
That's a
And
great
then
point.
and for the Kachucks though, I think that's always a possibility in their mind because that's the way they play. I think they knew that they were going to go out there and at least like throw some big hits. I don't know if they thought they were
Yeah.
going to get into a fight, but I definitely think they were going to come out swinging in some fashion.
That's just how they
And
play hockey. I mean, that's how Keith taught them to play hockey. Is you go out and you ram it down the other guy's throat. And I think what we
I
saw
mean,
was just an extension of what they do anyway.
that image from the Finland game of poor Henry Jokiharju with Brady barreling down on him from one side and Matthew barreling down on him from the other side, like I'd
oh,
be terrified.
that was a hit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what it, sure, and I'll agree. That's what I would have expected from them. They waited 9 years to put the body on someone. And their dad did throw mitts with a Canadian in a World Cup game. I believe it was in 96. I can't remember
I
which
think it
guy
was
he
96. I
fought.
think they showed it at least on ESPN's feed in the US, they showed Keith fighting and then they showed Matthew fighting and then Brady fighting.
Yeah, I mean, it's inherent in them and so forth. But I
Hmm.
think it's going to be really exciting to wrap up Four Nations. I think the U.S. wins this one, no matter who they face, whether it's Canada or I hope
They're
if it's
loaded and they're
Canada,
healthy.
it's Finland.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Exactly.
minus one Kachuk, but you still have another
And
Kachuk. So.
he said there's no concern, quote unquote, with his injury. So they could even realistically rest him tomorrow and then play him on Thursday.
Man, oh
Yeah, they
man.
could probably go easy on Sweden. I mean,
They
they're
can
in.
rest him
So
and play Chris Kreider, who's their extra, lest we forget.
Wow. I mean, that just says how deep and how strong the lineup is. And it speaks to the strength of USA hockey, the way it's developed and grown over time. Watching the juniors getting better, watching their influence in the sport. They are bringing in some of the best of the world, and it's been grown from the ground up, so to speak.
And I think like as someone who watched a lot of college hockey because I went to a hockey school, you can see it in the amount of Canadian players who are taking the NCAA route as opposed to the Canadian junior route. Just how strong USA Hockey and the players in the US are. That the level of the competition in NCAA has risen to the point that some of these like a Macklin Celebrini wants to play in for BU as opposed to playing in the O or or in his case would it have been the W, but whatever.
I think it probably was the dub, but you're right. It doesn't matter. That's a big. There's so many reasons for those types of selections when you're talking about your life, right? If you can get a great college education and play at the same level where you're recognized, like the Canadian junior hockey leagues, the W, and the O, and the Q. I mean, honestly, it speaks to how much it's grown, and it just makes, the lives of Brad and I, and of course, Sam, your life that much better and more fun and more entertaining because it's a sport that we all love. It's like we know, but I mean, it needs to be more. How it's not number one among fans, I will never understand ever. I just won't. It's sensational, and seeing great programs growing like the US one, like the ones throughout the world. There's joy. There's pure joy in getting a chance to watch these games. There's also pure joy in having amazing guests join us in the Storm Cellar. Sam
Absolutely.
Prevo, thank you so
Thank you
much
for
for
having
taking
me.
the
This was a
time.
blast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
so
was good
much
stuff.
fun. And I'll ask right now, if before we let you pimp your show, pimp what you do, before we get all of that out there, I just want to ask if you're willing to come back.
Absolutely.
We'll save a chair for you here in the Storm Cellar because we'd love to have you back. What you brought to the show was
Yeah,
amazing.
we have some
Thank
off-season
you.
episodes. I'd love to have some roundtables. I
Yes.
also one day want a guest to be like, "No, I don't want to come back." Not that I want that for the show, but I just think it would be funny for somebody
No,
to be like, "Yeah,
That
anytime.
that
This
would
was
be
a
funny.
blast.
So
So
excellent.
good. So, Sam, tell everyone who's listening where you can be found, because you know what? People need to see what you're doing. You've got
Thank
all the
you.
skill and all the knowledge. Where can people find you?
So personally, you can find me most places. I'm S Prevo, so my first initial and then my last name. I'm on Blue Sky, X, Instagram, all that. But professionally, you can follow us at BR underscore Open Ice. All Open Ice is all one word. So it's the Bleacher Report hockey subdivision, sub brand. But yeah, I mean, I'm one of four people, well, three now, but one of three people that run it. So pretty much all like in-game coverage, lots of memes, fun stuff. We have fun edits. We just, for the USA game last night, we edited Kendrick Lamar from the Super Bowl halftime show in a USA jersey. So, we do fun
Yes.
stuff like that. But yeah, we basically are trying to, give a new face to the way hockey's covered and talk more with our audience and be a part of the conversation instead of talking at you guys. And we've had a lot of fun the last few years. And
Yeah,
we also run the NHL and TNT socials. So if you like our TV show, then you can follow us there. And we are broadcasting the Stanley Cup final this year. So
rock on. And not because you're our guest, but because I honestly believe this. I would rather watch the NHL on TNT than the NHL on ESPN. 10 days out of 10.
thank
It's
you.
the the ESPN discussion is also its own show. Like I could go on a 5 hour rant of all the things that I find wrong with ESPN and the way that they have treated hockey and the Canes in general. TNT I think does a very good job of both the in arena folks and like the in studio folks as well as socials and everything. So I think
Yeah, it's a blast getting to be
I'm not happy hockey went back to ESPN.
yeah, it's a blast with TNT getting to be like even like adjacent to them and watch them do what they do. I mean, like people have their opinions on like Biz, but he like brings a lot to the table, and we have Anson and Hank, and it's sometimes Wayne, sometimes John Cooper even comes on, or Rick Bonus or whoever we have on. We used to have Rick Tocchet. It's a really fun. We're trying to give an inside the NBA style feel to the NHL, and I think it's really done wonders the last few years.
Yep. I think keep doing what you're doing. I think people like that switch. I think people prefer that to some of the more stagnant things that we get from other networks.
Sam, if you could do me a favor, you mentioned John Cooper
Yeah.
being on TNT. If you've got a connection to him, can you tell him to just start playing Seth Moore?
I would
You're
love
driving
to.
with
I would
John
love
from
to.
New York to
I would love to hit
Connecticut.
him up and be like, "Hey,
Drop
can
that.
you do me a solid, Coop?"
Just Coop,
Good
you're
two-way
coaching-
defensive
you're coaching-
forwards will help out your goaltending
He did say
situation.
on TNT that they said, like, has there been anybody on the team that you didn't get to coach before that was like a pleasant surprise or whatever? And he was like, that little Seth Jarvis.
He's sneaky.
Love that guy. I was like, me too, King. Me too.
He's sneaky, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
that little sneaky Seth Jarvis. I'm like, yep, that's him.
Cooper, you're coaching Team Canada, not Tampa Bay. Just please, I'm begging you.
You lean on what you know, I guess. Also, Braden Point's is not that bad of a hockey player.
He's all right. I guess. I guess.
I mean, I guess.
He's no Seth.
If you
Jarvis.
make us take him, fine, we'll take him.
Yeah, but yeah, so VR
twist
Open
my
Ice and
backward.
NHL on TNT, we're both we collab with each other a lot. We run both because we have limited resources in sports media, as you all know. But yeah, so VR Open Ice, NHL on TNT, me personally, wherever you want to follow, if you would like to, those are where you can find me.
Please do. It's been pure joy for us here in the Storm Cellar. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
And Brad,
Yes.
we're going to be talking as we always do, but in one
This time next week, dude, we'll be on the way to the airport on the way home. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. It is crazy. You know what? We've gone this far and we haven't said it yet. You know what else is crazy?
What?
That we still finish this the same way every time. Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.